Aside from sexual harassments like Ms. Hubahib discusses earlier, numerous organizations commit ethical violations and even face malpractices. I am Roxanne Tagap, your afternoon's presenter, and will accompany you in dealing with the problems of just wage, unfair compensation, unjust dismissal, gift giving, and bribery. For us to understand clearly the term just wage o ang sapat na sahod na dapat matanggap ng isang manggagawa, there are two terms associated that needs differentiation, the work and compensation. Work is said to be the purpose of obtaining economic gain for a labor, and we all agree that work is directed to promotion of life, for it is our duty to survive. We adhere to take an action. On the other hand, compensation happens when one is willing to work and exchange for remuneration or rewards he will receive from working. And those rewards or remuneration are classified into two forms, financial or non-financial. Financial, when there is tangible substance like cash on bank or check. Non-financial, like the benefits of PhilHealth, SSS, Pag-ibig, or any Medicare. Therefore, just wage happens when someone do the work, then it needs to be justly compensated. For no business would stay for long when there is injustice or cheating in paying wages, right? But it doesn't end there, since there are questions arising with a just wage. People argue on the appropriate criteria to consider in setting the just wage. Since just wage defined to be a remuneration which is enough to support the wage earner in a reasonable for frugal comfort, and I know you are familiar with the Catholic churches tell us a just wage is the legitimate fruit of labor. That's why there are criteria to determine fair wages. As you can see, we have 7 factors to consider if we are rightly compensated, and to those business owners to be guided. We have the external market factor, laws and regulations, cost of living, prevailing industry rate, organizational factor, job factor, and lastly, individual performances. But Roxanne, what those terms of definition means all about? Is their definition. External market factor refers to supply and demand and underemployment. 2. The laws and regulation. It refers to the workers should be paid in accordance with laws and regulations issued by the government. But employers required to pay a minimum wage, and as of now, year 2023, and here in the Philippines, we have the minimum wage for about 570 to 590. But sad to say, not all companies complied with it. Next is the cost of living. It relates to the basic maintenance needs, and it must be seriously considered. Fair wages should be suffice the increase of the cost of living. The prevailing industry rate, some claim that paying for the same job result in fair wage, but some company have a minimum wage that can't give a decent living. Next is organizational factor. It assesses what type of industry or organization it operates. The size as well as the profitability should be justly compensated in its workers. Next is the job factor. When we say job factor, the nature of job, duties, responsibilities, skills are one of the considerable factor. Next is individual performance, or the productivity ratings also affects fair wage. Like, you hit the quota, then you should be rewarded by justly compensation. Since we already done defining those terms, now let's move with some of the problems of business. We have the unfair compensation. From the word itself, unfair compensation, we already know about it, and it is a wage theft when you, a worker, not given enough compensation, and it's clearly an ethical violation when your employers fails to do so. The 7 formulation of just wage that I said earlier, then it is referred to unfair compensation. We already have also the unjust dismissal, which arises from a breach of employment contract by an employer and dismissing or termination of employees. When a worker illegally terminated without a basis, and the benefits he or she received from the length of service, back pay, and so on not being compensated, then it is an unjust dismissal, and the filing of cases would be necessary. Next is gift giving. It is merely an act of extending goodwill to an individual in an effort to share something with them. When the giver gives it without any exchange, then it is a gift giving and not a bribery. It also has its forms that you are very familiar with. You have the rebates or cash fund, premiums, free goods, prices, tips, coupons, and rewards. But Roxanne, you mentioned about bribery, and what is it all about? Class, when we say bribery, it is a practice of giving remuneration for a performance of an act that is inconsistent with the work or contract, the nature of the work one has been hired to perform. When you as a worker are dealing with crucial tasks and someone asks you for something and gives you a gift, then it's bribery. One clear example is XYZ company shares percentage of its income into a civil servant just to win a contract. When bribery emerged, the corruption within an organization were blown up that affects the quality and credibility of entity's image. Before I end my presentation, let me give you a quote. Your rights to receive compensation should be just and fair, for your sweat came from an effort. Hope I add up some wisdom with you, so thank you class for listening.